Delirium Show presents Scratch a Track.
The podcast where we debate which track to scratch off some of the most known and unknown albums of all time.
We live in an era of singles.
This is an album.
People no longer listen to an album for the work it truly is.
It kind of defines a band.
It's just not something that people relate to nowadays.
We've all gotten the dreaded.
It started out as a game.
Which track on the album would you scratch out if you had to? Hello everyone and welcome to another exciting episode of Scratch a Track presented by the Dude and Grim Show. I am the Dude, you know that. He is Grim, you know that. What up, Grim?
Nothing, dude. Just kind of taking it easy for all the sinners today.
Oh, dude, sign me up.
Yeah, the end of another grueling day.
Oh, dude. Yes, Roland T. Flackpfizer, attorney at law.
Yep.
Whew. No case too large. No case too small. No fee too large.
Yep. Yeah.
Oh man.
Which I assume we'll see that one on Ride and Fade Out, or hear that one pretty quickly. I mean.
Oh yeah, it's definitely in our top. Okay, maybe not our top 10, but it's gonna be close. So. All right. Well, now we're in the scratch. I was like, what podcast am I even doing? This is the Scratch Attack podcast. And anyways, so today we are doing, or because of our mishap last time, redoing. I know it's okay. Highway 61. We're gonna revisit Highway 61.
It's it's Highway 61 revisited.
I
love it.
Can we put that in parentheses?
Yeah, I think we should. Yeah. When we list it, we should. Yeah, Highway 61 revisited. So we thought we were revisiting it the first time, but now we're really revisiting our original visitation and revisitation.
We are. Yeah. So let's revisit it. So yeah, we've talked, this is our first Bob Dylan album that we've done. But he did appear in the Covers Face Off with Jimi Hendrix and their the song All Along the Watchtower.
And I have a feeling, based on the fact that he has got to be one of the most covered musicians of all time, I got a feeling he's going to show up another time or two in the Covers Face Off. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you got a lot of people who did Dylan covers and did them really well.
Really well. Jimi Hendrix. Did you say All Along the Watchtower? It's got to be the best cover of a Dylan song, right?
Maybe of any song, honestly. But yeah certainly true. Of Dylan. I mean, a lot of people would make the case for Knocking on Kevin's Door, the GNR version, but I'm sorry. It really just doesn't hold a candle to Hendrix's All Along the Watchtower.
That's fair.
I think your average fan wouldn't even know that that's a Dylan song because they can only associate it with Hendrix, you know?
That's a very good point. So, well, it's interesting, man, because Dylan is such an interesting artist. First of all, he's a solo artist, and for the most part, but then at the same time, kind of not, especially when he got into this phase of his career where he really started going electric. Now, his previous album was Bringing It All Back Home, and that was kind of
about half and half.
What did they say? Half and half. And this one was basically 95%, although Desolation Row is an 11-minute song. Yeah. This one is primarily
time-wise maybe 70-30, but but for all the songs other than Desolation Row, I mean, even the ones that aren't I hesitate to use the word heavier, but the ones that aren't as heavy electric, I mean, there's still electric instruments in them. So I'm thinking of It Takes a Lot to Laugh, It Takes a Train to Cry. I mean, you still got electric guitars and...
Does it ever?
Dude.
Yeah. Well, dude, the thing with Dylan, and just like you talked about, he's probably one of the most covered artists of all time, but definitely the most influential. I mean, anybody during that time period, everybody was influenced by them. Like, I think most popular or relevant that we've talked about is his influence on the Beatles and the Beatles' influence on him, because when he was hanging out with the Beatles, it was mid 60s before the Beatles kind of expanded their minds. And he basically said to them when he met him, he's like, you guys' music is good, but you don't say anything.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they come out with Rubber Soul, Revolver, and just kind of go on that trip, literally. And I think they influenced him from a studio musical perspective, and probably wanting to expand his sound a little bit. So,
I would think absolutely, because they had that, the way they built and structured a song down. Like, I mean, the only people you could compare it to would be the Beach Boys, which we'll go down that road later too. But yeah, I mean, he had to have had a huge, that must have really taken them aback to receive that criticism, because boy, you're right. you come out with, all of a sudden there's more introspection and more thought behind what they're doing.
Yeah. I think he also may have been the first one to get him smoking weed too. I'm not sure.
I've heard, you always hear accounts of this, but who knows?
Yeah. I'm sure Dylan had better shit. So.
I'm thinking, I'm not for sure. I can't tell if that's like, he may be holding a bowl in the album cover. I don't know. It's some weird little trinket.
Maybe a oney, a little dugout, you know?
Yeah, just kind of, when he's in there, just kind of take a little peek by the amp, and
sometimes you got to take a pull, man. Yeah. So anyways, this was, I guess talking maybe a little bit more about Dylan. To me, he is probably the most original artist or musician that comes to mind. I mean, David Bowie and Prince, they really come to mind. But to me, with Dylan, is his voice is so unique, and you can't, I wouldn't necessarily, it doesn't sound good, but it sounds right. Mm-hmm. Like, it just fits. And it was just really interesting. I remember the first couple of times hearing him, I was like, wow, I've never heard anyone sing like that, but I like it.
Yeah.
So,
he makes it work.
He does.
But I know what you mean. What always struck me about him too is his lyrics. I'd never heard anyone write songs like that. And I don't know about you. This kind of came into my lap in high school. So I got to give my shout out to Miss Brooks, Amy Brooks, on this one, Miss Brooks, because I had listened to like your Dylan's greatest hits, right? Which is a good introduction to him, but I want to say this was the one where she said you really need to get a hold of this specific record and listen to it, and so I did, and it obviously stuck with me ever since then, and that collection kind of grew.
Yeah, I don't think I necessarily got into this album specifically, probably until college. I think in high school, I know I had his greatest hits. It was like the older classic one where I think it has this silhouette with kind of the blue, the lights around him and everything. I think that during that time, most people had. And of course I knew Like a Rolling Stone. I mean, that's like the big song, probably, it's, I think Rolling Stone ranked it number 1 on the 500 greatest songs of all time. I mean, it's probably other than Rainy Day Woman, which, everybody probably refers to as Everybody Must Get Stoned, is probably, it's the one most listeners would know who don't know about Dylan, right?
And I think it's just widely considered as like, one of the most classic rock songs ever made. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. Hard to argue with that. People can't sing the verses so much with it, but they can really relate to the chorus part. How does it feel? Yeah. How does it feel? God, how does it feel? Yeah. So this was his 6th album. I know, right? Which that's something right there. But I mean, everything up to then, I think he had 4 of them that were all acoustic, right? Or I guess really 5, and then Bring It All Back Home was half and half, and then we can talk about how we went electric at the Newport Folk Festival. Which went over like a fart in church. Yeah, it was kind of what the scholars would refer to as a real shit pickle, I think, in some ways, but an important moment. And then after that, I think he kind of just more or less said fuck it and just went this way.
I think it's a good thing because, God forbid you try to expand your sound.
Yeah.
It was interesting. So recently I started watching, and of course the name of the documentary is going to escape me. I think the name of the documentary might be Bringing It All Back Home, but it's the one Scorsese, I think, produced or did.
Okay. Yeah.
And it cuts back and forth. But it starts off with him. I think he's in Europe. And he's playing songs off this album, and people are booing and not liking it. And then throughout the documentary, you kind of see him leaving the show, and then they're interviewing fans, and some fans are loving it, some fans are hating it. People are calling him, a sellout and telling him to, just basically stop. And they're like giving him, dude, it's awesome. They're just giving him a bunch of shit. And then he just goes right into, what song is it? Right into Ballad of a Thin Man. Dude, he just sits down at the piano, man, and just starts just nailing it, dude. It was pretty sweet, like, in the
awesome.
show. Yeah, it was pretty cool. So highly recommend that documentary. It's on Netflix right now, and it's like just under 4 hours. So it is a bit of a commitment. I would recommend watching it probably in sections, but definitely well worth your time. Good interviews with a lot of people who knew him throughout his life, but also good interviews with Dylan, who, if you've seen a lot of footage of him, isn't always the most enjoyable person, I think, to interview. He can be a little standoffish at times. I think it was a little different probably when he was getting interviewed by the media and the press, especially when he was being questioned about his musical direction during this time. He didn't
I'm
take
sure
to
that
too
could
well.
get a little annoying.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, okay, so he goes electric, and one thing that I think is interesting is I know that you had mentioned when we revisited this album the first time that it was thought by many that a lot of Queen Jane approximately kind of had to do with some of the backlash of that. But what I did read though is that one of the outtakes from this album, which I only knew about from the Greatest Hits, which is one of my favorite songs of his, Positively 4th Street, is actually all about the backlash where he kind of thumbed his nose right back at all the folk people who thought that he was a sellout or who had a problem with what he did, because he basically, they interpreted it as him putting down his former friends in the folk community, which had to do with the clubs along West 4th Street in New York. So it's, and I mean, if you listen to the lyrics, it's all like, you got a lot of nerve to say you were my friend when I was down. You just stood there grinning. I mean, it all like makes perfect sense when you hear the lyrics.
Yeah, it does.
So anyway,
that's a really good song.
Yeah, I kind of wish it would have made the album, honestly. One of my favorites is.
What album is that on?
You can only find it on one of the Greatest Hits.
Really?
I don't remember if that's volume 1 or 2.
Crazy.
I feel like it's the first one, but that's the only place that I ever knew it, because it never made Highway 61, but I believe it was recorded during those sessions.
Very cool.
When you listen to it, it has that sound, right? I mean...
Right. Well, the thing was with recording this album, so he came back from England. He was touring England in like 1965 or so, and he was just like burned out. I think he was just tired of just playing the same songs, him being up there with his acoustic guitar and his harmonica, and he was just like done with it. And so I guess he came back and he wrote like 20 pages of just free form verse, whatever. And he eventually pared that down, and that's what became the lyrics to Like a Rolling Stone. So he came back, and I think they said this album was basically recorded, which is kind of crazy, in two sessions.
Yep.
So the first one, June 15th and 16th, he did it, I believe it was in New York, and with a producer named Tom Wilson. And they recorded, it was actually, I think, a fast version of It Takes a Lot to Laugh, A Train to Cry. An unreleased song, Sitting on a Barbed Wire Fence, and then Like a Rolling Stone. But so they recorded that over a couple days. And then he took a little break, and that's when he played the now infamous Newport Folk Festival. And that's basically where I think, I'm not sure what he did at the show. I'm not sure if he did like a half and half kind of thing, like he did with, the album Bring It All Back Home. But when he got up there for Electric,
because I can't remember the whole bit, but I remember in my recollection of seeing footage of that, he walks up there with an electric, and Mike Bloomfield was with him playing electric guitar, and Al Cooper, and probably a bassist and a drummer too whose names escape me. But those guys are important because they were actually on this album too. Is why I mentioned them.
Yeah. Right.
But they went up there and started playing Maggie's Farm, and it was, it was like they just took a dump on the audience or something.
Pretty much. No, I mean, people's ears, I think, were literally like bleeding.
They real were not steamer. Happy. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. An upper decker. Yeah. It was not, they did not take too kindly to it. That's for sure. And so anyways, dude, it's hard to even go somewhere from there, but so anyways, I mean, I don't know if he got booed off the stage. No, he didn't really get booed off the stage, but they booed. And I think he actually at one point stopped and I think he kind of sarcastically started playing acoustic and was just like, all right, fine, I'm just going to play whatever you guys want. I'd have to watch. I do believe that is kind of in the documentary, and they talk about that, and I have to look that up a little more. But I think there were times where he may have done that, where he just got tired of them booing. He's like, all right, fine, I'll just play whatever you want. But he kind of played it half-assed too. So
yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, after the festival, he, I think it was July. Yeah, it looks like July 29th. He went back into the studio, but this time with a different producer, Bob Johnston, and they recorded out like tons of songs. I mean, on one of the dates. Now they were in there for I think maybe a week or 5 days or so. But on August 2nd, just check out this list of songs. August 2nd, they recorded Highway 61 Revisited, Just Like Tom Thumb's Blues, Queen Jane approximately, and Ballad of a Thin Man. I mean, dude, to be able to just go in and just knock out those songs, that's a
hell of a day, man.
Yeah. But would you like attribute that to? I mean, I think they recorded a lot of these songs, I guess, live. Like, I mean, they may have overdubbed vocals later, but a lot of it was just, hey, this is the live performance. I don't even
know how much of that they did as I was reading on it. I mean, this is like recording a real band, and it doesn't sound as if there's a lot of overdubs. Maybe they did the vocals, but I would tend to think these were probably just actual takes.
Yeah.
And at this point in, you're at 1965. I don't know if I can actually read all that, but my gut would tell me you would have probably had about 8 tracks to work with.
Yeah.
So,
they probably weren't. Yeah. Pro Tools wasn't around yet.
No, it wasn't. So, you might have, you just didn't have, everyone may not have had their own track, so to speak, or, like the drums, they probably didn't like split it up and mic the kick and the snare. You probably had this area where the drum riser was and 1 or 2 good overhead mics, and that's your drum sound.
Yeah.
And, but it sounds great. I mean, it has such a raw and like live feel to it, which I think really adds to the sound.
Oh, no, it definitely does.
About the title itself, which we've revisited now several times, I was always fascinated with the title, but the actual Highway 61 is an old highway that stretches from Duluth, Minnesota, where he was born, down to basically the swamps in New Orleans.
In New Orleans, right?
And it runs through St. Louis. It runs through Memphis. It runs through a lot of really... people call it dub it the Blues Highway because it runs through all these towns in Mississippi. It runs through all the Delta, all this stuff that was really important with blues music. And I believe as the story goes, there's a famous song called "The Crossroads" by Robert Johnson, which depicts him being a struggling musician, and he meets the devil at the crossroads, and exchanges his soul for the ability to play guitar is the gist of the song. And I believe that's supposed to be at the crossroads of Highway 61 and Highway 41.
Okay, yeah, I think you're 49.
49, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I always thought
cool.
that title was cool just because there's a lot of history there. And I mean,
Yeah.
that is not a freeway. That is basically like a 2-lane road that runs the whole north and south of the United States and probably goes through just some amazing areas, you know?
Yeah, it's probably not 75 miles an hour.
No. No.
No. Yeah, no, and that's really cool. I mean, and I think a lot of those musicians and that time period when all that music was popular, like I think that was very influential on him and the type of musician he became, and that was the stuff I think he was really really listening to a lot. Again, in that documentary, one of his friends or this kid that he was friends with when they were younger, I think Dylan actually maybe befriended him because he had a really large record collection, and then he ended up borrowing some while they were like gone on vacation. I don't know if they ever got him back, but that's a pretty cool story to be like, yeah, Bob Dylan stole my records and it influenced him to the musician he is today. So
that's interesting.
Yeah. So interesting. Well, what do you say, Grim? Is there anything else?
Yeah, I don't know. I think there's going to be plenty to get into in the songs themselves. So I think this is where let's
get it on.
Start out with Like a Rolling Stone.
Side 1, Like a Rolling Stone. Yes.
Yeah.
Side 1, track 1, Like a Rolling Stone. Again, definitely the most popular song on the album. It's hailed by many people as the greatest song ever written.
One of the most important songs in rock and roll.
It pretty much is, yes. And it's been in some movie. Dude, it's in a good scene in The Name of the Father. When,
I remember that.
When he's
Daniel
on the boat.
Day-Lewis.
Yeah. Oh, so good, man. So good. That might have been actually my first real exposure to the song. Because I remember watching that with you. And we were young. We were young, man, when it came out. Yeah, it was pretty cool.
But yeah, that was a good scene. And you can... they're supposed to be in Northern Ireland, so you can just see how this song's popularity and even then it was supposed to be like the 70s, I want to say, around that time was the 70s.
I believe so. Yeah.
So
yeah.
you're already talking about a song that's, it didn't exactly just burst out on the scene then, but I mean,
right.
For a 6.25 minute song, you hear it on the radio a lot, and it's played in its entirety. And I know one thing they talk about that was really important was Al Cooper's organ playing in it, because apparently Al Cooper was a piano player, and he's done a lot of famous stuff since this. But one of the things they noted is that he had actually never played an electric organ before they did this. And so, which the organ is very different from the piano, because with a piano, you strike a note, and even if you hold down the pedal, eventually the note dies. But an organ is not like that. When you hold down the note, I mean, it'll be there forever. You go...
Go have a bite.
Yeah.
Come back and still.
Yeah. So it's a different feel. It's a different way that you would attack the instrument to play. So I don't know. I just always, I never thought about that so much, but it is interesting because I've always liked the organ part in it, but.
Absolutely. And to me, this whole album, some of the songs, and we'll get into more of them, but that's what stands out to me actually most about this album is the organ parts, the piano parts. Like, they're just so damn good, man.
Yeah, and they stack up really nice together. Like they stack up really nice, and with the clean electric guitar, I think everything it just stacks up really nice. But
totally. Well, then we moved on to the blues, and that is the Tombstone Blues. And yeah, this song definitely hits, right off the bat. And it's got that, I find it's kind of there's a kind of a classic whiny, squealy kind of electric guitar sound in a lot of the Dylan songs.
Yeah.
And you definitely hear, and I can see why certain people who are used to his kind of his acoustic stuff,
Wouldn't
that
like
may
it.
not quite appeal to them. And
Yeah,
find it a little
sometimes it
repulsive,
sounds like
but-
it's done in a garage or something, but it's so raw. You know, that's what I always liked about it.
Yeah, definitely,
so
definitely.
raw.
And, yeah, no, it's just like it's a cool, fun song that moves. You know, the drum sound, I think, kind of really loose and kind of crashing, but it keeps the song moving. Got the organ in the background, and yeah, I think one of my, you know, he is a lyricist, and not that this is an overly deep lyric or anything like that, but the one that in this song that always stands out to me is the sun's not yellow, it's chicken.
Yeah, I do like the way
it's just kind of a funny little thing that he does.
Yeah, he does a good job playing with words. Mm-hmm. And the lyrics are kind of dark. I mean, what is it? Mama's in the factory, she ain't got no shoes. Daddy's in the alleys looking for food. I mean, I'm in trouble with the Tombstone Blues.
Something
it
like
sounds
that,
like kind of a dire situation in that household. I mean,
yeah, definitely. Definitely. It is a dire situation. They are in dire straits.
yeah.
Moving on to track 3, Graham.
Takes a lot to
It does
laugh.
it does, but
Takes a
it takes a
train
train to cry. It does.
Yes.
It does. So yeah, for me, I just love the feel of this song. Like again, some of the songs have that real kind of saloon type feeling. And is this one of the songs they use the tack piano? Because I know there's a few of them on there. Is this one of them?
Yeah, I believe it is, and that's one thing we'll do real quick, like we did before. But we'll talk about how that sound is made. But I think one thing you brought up before is how this song wasn't going to be in the format or in the feeling that it is on the album.
Right. Yeah, it was. They recorded, I think, a couple different ways. I think they recorded a faster way and then also a slower way. And I'm not sure if that was done at different sessions with different producers, but the first recording session they actually recorded a faster version.
Yeah, and then I thought last time you had mentioned something crazy. You know, like everybody went out to lunch or something. And he stayed back and kind of reworked the song, and then it became more like it is.
I'm glad you remember because I forgot, even though it is in my notes here.
Yeah.
But that is the story. Like I think they must have recorded it, put it down, and when people left, he must have just sat there and thought and been like, you know, this ain't doing it. Yeah, it's not it.
So we'll talk about this real quick because it comes up in a lot of the songs, but the piano sound. I always wanted this piano sound in my own music, and I found out that you could buy samplers or whatever, but what you need to do is just actually get the sound. So you get a piano, and it can be slightly out of tune, and what you do is you take brass tacks, and you just attach the brass tacks on the hammers like so, and in doing so you end up with a really nice kind of jangly kind of sound, and that's that sound, and it's used a lot on the album, and I just think it's a wonderful sound, and it's totally unique, and you can't fake it, you know?
Yeah, definitely. No, it is cool. And for me, I think it's because I kind of love like Western movies and that kind of feel.
Yeah.
And dude, anytime there's a saloon and it's just, dude, it just brings me back to like those
scenes,
those types of movies. And those scenes and everything. Totally. So yeah. So I think, do we want to move on?
Yeah. And you know, that'll come up again. But the next one, From a Buick 6, is interesting. So I bought this on vinyl a couple years back. And I was always used to the version of From a Buick 6 that I knew, which was on the CD version, right? But on vinyl, there's a different take of this song, and it's close, but there's just different things he does in some subtleties in the words and the cadence of the words that when I listened to it the first time, it really kind of threw me off because this is one of my favorites on the album. And, you know,
it's interesting. I wonder if they used a different version. I mean, just because, or if it was a mistake,
think so.
Or is it, so this song itself is 3 minutes and 19 seconds on the CD. I'm curious. I mean, I can't add up the times real quick, but I wonder if maybe the version on the record is like what if it was just like a couple seconds shorter so they could fit it on or something? I don't know.
You're at 12, 18. Yeah, you know, that could be because it's
probably close.
With these songs just on side one, you're damn close to what you can hold. I mean, you got about
3 6-minute songs, a 4-minute song, and 3 minutes and 19 seconds.
Yeah, so you're right at the edge of what a record can, you know,
hold on the side for sure.
So
interesting, very interesting.
I like the one on the CD better for what it's not that anyone cares, but I do like that one.
Everyone cares. Everyone cares. Yeah, no, it's interesting. It's a short song on the album. It doesn't have it's not like overly electric with the guitar sounds. There's like a little harmonica solo, and it's got I think a few little like electric guitar riffs as the song fades out at the end. Riffs. But some good riffs. Then we move on to the last song of side one, Ballad of a Thin Man. My favorite song in the album. It's so dark, man.
Yeah,
it's
I know.
So dark.
Using the piano again.
So dark. Yeah, piano and the organ, dude, Al Cooper, dude, just destroys the song. He just crushes it.
And they describe it really well. Like his organ riff sounds spooky. I mean, that's how it's described, and I think that's pretty accurate. And the lyrics are real dark.
Yeah, very dark, very dark. And I love listening. There's I think on his if you get so the name of that documentary I was talking about is called No Direction Home, and there is like a soundtrack. There is a soundtrack to that, and in the soundtrack, I believe it's on disc 2. It's called No Direction Home 2. It's part of his bootleg series. That's what's really cool about some of Dylan's stuff is they have a lot of outtakes and bootlegs because I think a lot of these songs like we were talking about that were recorded was basically recorded live. So it's like, oh, you can listen to takes 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all that stuff. Like I'm just looking here, Tombstone Blues, take 9, just like Tom Thumb's Blues, take 5, Desolate Row, take 1. So it's got a bunch of them there, but there is on the last 2 songs, or the second to last song on disc 2 of the No Direction Home series is a live version of Ballad of a Thin Man. And dude, it's killer. It's so good. Like just hearing that song live, because dude, they can just get so nasty with it. It's badass. So
I gotta check that out.
If people like this album and like that song, highly recommend getting that. I'm sure it's on
Direction Home 2.
Probably every music downloading platform.
They really should have titled it No Direction Home Revisited. Just saying.
2. Yeah. You got to cover all your bases.
Yeah.
Redux. So that ends. I don't know if there's any more to say about that song other than it's badass.
It's really good. The lyric, I mean, I've actually never noticed any other song specifically calling out a one-eyed midget. But our buddy Dan Stauffer might have called out a few one-eyed midgets from time to time, but not in song form. Yeah, so just a really weird, dark song.
Yep. Well, let's flip the side, Graham. Let's flip it.
Queen Jane, approximately.
Not exactly, approximately.
And I think
in the area.
Well, and I can see why, because as you listen to the lyrics, it basically sounds like a woman who was going to get married and it didn't happen. You know, when your mother sends back all the invitations, and it's like,
oh yeah,
it's like they got far enough, and then it was just like, yeah, I think we're good.
Yeah, definitely. It's well, the thing that the line that stands out to me, I think this is a little bit of maybe a bit of a shot at his fans, was, and all your children start to resent you.
Yeah, I remember you saying that.
It could be taken that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. How dare you not stay?
But I mean, the sound I think to me is similar to a lot of what's been going on in the album, but maybe just a little lighter. It's somewhere in between, like, It Takes a Lot to Laugh, It Takes a Train to Cry, and like From a Buick 6. It's kind of, you know, somewhere in the middle there.
Yeah, to me it actually, so I feel like it has a very similar feel, and sounds a lot like a Rolling Stone, but it's not quite as punchy as like a Rolling Stone is.
Okay, yeah, I can see that.
So that's kind of how I think of that song.
Oh, that's fair.
Second track, title track of the album, Highway 61 Revisited. Now this song, dude, to me is just, it's really upbeat. It's kind of a funny song. And dude, I forget, what's the instrument that he plays?
Oh, the siren whistle.
The siren? Okay.
The siren,
yeah.
Which is a woo.
Yeah, I thought it was like, it just sounds like a toy or something like a kid would play.
And I think like it may well have been that.
Maybe. Okay. Yeah.
But, you know, just this weird little thing. I want to. Oh, dude, it definitely looks like a little kid's toy. It's like some sort of a slide whistle type deal, but I for some reason don't think that's quite right. But anyways, yeah. So but that thing to me, it stands out in it, like you can't unhear that. You know what I mean?
No, you can't.
And normally I think you tend to pull up lyrics a lot more when we're doing this than I do. But this one, I did want to pull up the lyrics because it starts out biblical. I mean, talking about the slaying of Abraham's son. And, you know, where do you want the killing done? Out on Highway 61. Like, it's this mythical place where, like, all the shit goes down is out on Highway 61. And every verse kind of leads back to that, right?
Sure. Yeah, it's funny when he loves to pull out a lot of Bible names and references and things like that. It's really, because I don't think Dylan's an overly religious person necessarily, but
not until later in his career when he came out with the album Saved. Not one of my favorites.
Okay. No, didn't do it for you, huh?
No.
Okay. Great. We just lost a bunch of fans. But he does tend to do that. Like, even just like we were saying in what was it, All Along the Watchtower. He took a lot of kind of Bible verses from that and kind of incorporated that into the song and whatnot. So he's at least well read. That's right.
Oh yeah, yeah. But so. It's just really really interesting talking about having 1,000 telephones that don't ring, and do you know where I can get rid of these things? And you just dump them on the highway, man, and cruise on.
Cruise on, man. Cruise on. Well, let's cruise on, buddy.
Okay. Cruising on then to Just Like Tom Thumb's Blues. One of my favorites.
Tack piano
again. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's a little bit slower, but yeah, it's good.
Yeah, I feel like it in many ways, the way the song is constructed remind me of like a less darker... It has less dark similarities to Ballad of a Thin Man, kind of. It's just a little more what's the word I'm looking for? Like melancholy. It's a little more melancholy instead of dark, you know. And it's got really interesting lyrics. And it sounds like I don't know. There's stuff about one line that always stood out to me was, "They got a lot of hungry women there, and they'll really make a mess out of you." You know,
yeah. Well, and one of my favorite lines is, what does he say? And my best friend, my doctor, won't even say what I've got. You know, it's just, it is kind of funny, man. It's like he's being ousted a little bit, or people don't want to have anything to do with him too. And it does have that, it's got this song. It's interesting because Dylan has different styles of when he sings, and sometimes he just kind of, I wouldn't say he raps, but he kind of spews out words a little bit. This one, he actually, I think, tries to sing a little more and, carry a little bit more of a melody.
Yeah.
And it's, for at least melody for Dylan.
Yeah. But yeah, I do feel like it has a lot to do with, like being somewhere else and getting involved with some sort of lost love, like there's a lot of feeling of like lost love in it. And just like self-deprecation. I mean, I started out on Burgundy, but soon hit the harder stuff, and everyone said they'd stand behind me when the going got rough, but the joke was on me. There was no one even there to call my bluff. I'm going back to New York City. I believe I've had enough.
Had enough, dude. Well, we got a writer here.
Yeah.
He knew what he was doing for sure. Well, then we move on. Last song of the album, and longest song, like by far, in Desolation Row, and that is coming in at over 11 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's really the only, I guess you could fully acoustic song on the album.
I don't believe there's any. It's just his guitar, and then he's joined by a Nashville session musician, Charlie McCoy.
Was that Charlie? Okay, I thought that's who it was.
Who just kind of puts those beautiful little like sprinkles on top.
Yeah, I don't even know what is there a certain style you would call that? Like, part of me, I don't know when I'm thinking of it now. It almost like has a Spanish style, but I don't even know.
I could see why you'd say that with some of what he plays, but I don't know what I'd call it. He just puts nice kind of like throwing some spice into the mix,
Yeah, it has a real good, pleasant sound for sure. So I think it's a parting gift for all the people who didn't like the 8 songs that came before it.
Yeah, and I like the song. I think there's a lot of interesting imagery in the lyrics and stuff. Like they're selling postcards of the hanging and painting the passports brown. I mean, there's just again the lyrics. I think that's why you can get away with this song being as long as it is, because you don't know where the hell the lyrics are going to go next.
Sure, that's fair.
You know, and Desolation Row is again like this, just like this kind of sad place where all these bad things happen, so to speak.
Like Highway 61.
Yeah, which, the title, I suppose, would imply.
It would.
But
it's very literal. No.
Yeah.
The one time Dylan is literal in his life, right?
Yeah. Go figure, man.
Yeah. Well, I think it's about time we pull out our screwdrivers or razor blades, or what other scratching objects are there?
Hell, a needle would do it.
Ooh, a needle would do it.
Those grooves.
An axe would do it.
Yeah,
an axe would do it.
Those grooves are pretty fine. I mean,
they are, man. Don't mess with those grooves.
Well, I think that I think
it's your turn, man.
I feel like I was on the tee last time, and
no, I took Injustice for All, Metallica.
You did?
Yeah, I did, and then we went to overtime. Pretty sure.
You're right.
Pretty sure.
We went to double overtime. It was almost that Capitals and Islanders game. Like, I didn't think that was going to end.
The Islanders win the series in the game. Yep.
All right. Well, if that's how it's going to be, I'll get on the tee. And we just talked about it, and I had a lot of good things to say about it. And it is a really good song. But if I was going to scratch one, I would scratch Desolation Row reluctantly, because it's an awesome song. And I do like it as an end of the album, but, and not to say not to say I don't appreciate a good change in style, but I really love the feel of the rest of the album. And if it were to end with just like Tom Thumb's Blues, I don't know how you could think that you got cheated out of anything.
No, I could go with that. Yeah, I could. Yeah, we could end with that song. Well, I think it's about time that you get ready for overtime.
Oh, come now.
Because I got to scratch Desolation Row as well. You know, I appreciate the lyrics, but it's Bob Dylan, man. Every song has amazing lyrics. I don't, I can deal without an 11-minute acoustic kind of song that really doesn't. It's repetitive. It doesn't change too much. It's classic. It's classic Dylan.
That's fair.
It's just, and the sound of it doesn't overly appeal to my ears. So I would definitely scratch that one.
Well, okay. So 2 things. I hear you. Number 2 is we need some sort of sound effect that's like overtime, because I mean it seems like we're having a lot of playoff games here recently, and I'm sorry, dude, when it's the playoffs, you don't end in a tie. It's it's what, like a 5 or a 7 game series. You don't do that
shootout.
Shit. Yeah,
I know, but also. Well, it's tough because I mean, this album had 9 songs. The And Justice for All had 9 songs. I think when we get into the more voluminous albums, like when we had Lonesome Crowded West, it wasn't that much of an issue because there was 15, 16 songs.
Yeah, true. And 9 songs, yeah.
But we can come up with some sort of I don't know, sound. Whatever.
I think I'll just make one and just put it in there. Like in post.
In post.
We'll just do it in post.
Yeah. Okay, so is it my since you scratched first, do I have to
think so.
Do I get the first pick? So excuse me. I will scratch off Queen Jane approximately. Actually, I'll scratch out Queen Jane exactly. And the main reason the main reason I say that is because to me it has a very similar feel to Like a Rolling Stone. I just don't think it's as good of a song, and so it's not like, to me, I just don't need that in there. Then that's pretty much the main reason. I feel like all the other songs to me. I mean, I guess I could say there's other ones that have similar feels, but this one's, the other songs are, I think, a little more unique, whereas that one, not necessarily. So that's mine. Queen Jane approximately. What about you?
Well, Deuteronomy, I'm going to have to go with Tombstone Blues.
Ooh.
If that were to be the case. And not that I don't think it's an awesome song, but at almost 6 minutes...
Yeah,
I don't feel like it kind of varies enough, even within itself, where the other ones to me are just they're just so classic. Like I couldn't lose It Takes a Lot to Laugh, It Takes a Train to Cry, Ballad of a Thin Man, From a Buick 6. Either version, mind you, of From a Buick 6, although the original one, or at least the one that I grew up knowing on the CD, is the one that I think is superior. I love that song, and so I'd have to go with Tombstone Blues. I could sacrifice it if I was, like sat down at a table, hands tied, they're gonna start banging off fingers with a ball peen hammer. That's the one I'm choosing.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be hard to argue with that when you put it that way. Yeah, I'm on board. Fuck, scratch the whole album. I mean, I want to keep my digits, yo. Keep my digits.
Oh yeah.
Keep our digits.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to hit enter and spacebar and shit otherwise.
Control Alt Delete.
Yeah.
Although that really isn't pertain to a Mac. Anyways, so well, Grim, I think we have officially scratched Highway 61 Revisited.
The sequel.
Close friends.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyways, that was good. I'm sure we will have, I can guarantee you, we will have more Bob Dylan down the road, whether it's on Highway 61 or some other road. Who knows?
Yeah.
But if this version of the recording doesn't work out, we're not going to do it again for a really long time.
Yep. Yeah.
We've already decided that. So, yeah, I guess it's about time to fade out, folks. So if you aren't subscribed, then why the hell aren't you? And
please do.
You should follow us, subscribe.
It'd mean a lot.
It would. Comment. Because I'll reply. Like, I reply like right away. I'm really good at it. So even if you don't like it, tell your friends, tell your family, you know, whatever.
What would you scratch? Yeah, that's what we want to know. I mean,
what would you scratch? It's like that show. What would you do? Isn't that a show? Is that Nickelodeon? I don't know. Anyways, tell us
like
what that show was.
Mark Summers.
Definitely Mark Summers. Yeah. Well, all right. We've talked too much about stuff that doesn't make sense. So it's time to fade out. Peace out, everyone. Stay safe. Happy scratching.
Scratch you later.
Scratch a Track is produced by the Dude and Grim. Additional music provided by More. That's ... MORE. And the Tims. TIMNZ. Copyright 2020. The Dude and Grim Show.